The FIM International 6 Days of Enduro makes only a second visit to Chile in its 93-year history. Host region Valparaiso is close enough to capital Santiago to guarantee a large following, whilst taking advantage of the natural charm of local hills and valleys. Each rider will take in over 1,000 kilometres of two-wheel trekking through the terrain, leaving every day from the city centre paddock in Viña del Mar and completing a total of 4 different routes with timed special tests during the event determining the team classification. The ISDE is the largest event of the Enduro season and pits national teams against one another in what's often referred to as the Olympics of motorcycling. For 2018, the world's 25 best nations meet in 3 premium classes, the Women's, Junior and World Trophies. Last season, the competition visited its European hotbed in France, and it was the host nation that came out on top in both men's categories, restoring the tricolour to the top of the podium in the World Trophy for the first time since 2014. The French team extended the reign of their golden generation, led by Christophe Nambertin.
We're very far from our home country, and the new regulations mean there are 4 riders, but only 3 results count per day. Last year, there were a lot of teams eliminated through injury and mechanical failures. So this year is going to be different. The ground is also very different, a very dry and dusty terrain, so we'll need to be at our best. Runners-up to the French side last season were Australia, the 2015 champions. But the men from Down Under have just one surviving member of that title success, and therefore will be relying on a new-look outfit this season.
Obviously, 2015 was a really strong year for us guys. So, yeah, I mean, even that I'm that only guy that's left in the team from that team, I think it's going to be good. We have really strong riders, and our riders here back home in Australia are getting better and better, and that's what helps us guys come over here and do so well.
Italy fell victim to a midweek retirement in what turned into a race of attrition last season. Their most recent fond memory of the World Trophy remains a 2007 victory here in Chile, when their current team leader Alex Salvini was already among the men to beat.
It's a great pleasure for me to be back here in Chile. A great deal of emotion because I made my debut in Enduro in La Serena, and it was an incredible one. I was a motocross rider at that time, and they called me at the last moment. Compared to 2007, the regulations have changed, but we're all very motivated and strong. We have a good feeling between us, so I think we'll be able to do some good things and challenge for the positions that count. Another rider who has fond memories of that 2007 visit to Chile is Cristobal Guerrero, who was part of Spain's junior trophy team that year. Now something of a veteran, he'll be keen to put behind him a 2017 retirement and return to winning ways.
I have
great memories here. In 2007, we won the junior class. Then last year, unfortunately, I retired because of a crevasse in one of the enduro tests. It was a real disappointment for the team because you couldn't drop a result. As for now, a top 3 finish would be a great result for us. It's a long race, but we're motivated to do it. The defence of the USA's 2016 title was ended by the close of the opening day in 2017. And they've suffered more misfortune in the lead up to this event, with Caleb Russell ruled out through a shoulder injury. 2014 junior champion Stuart Baylor comes in to replace him, and there's still a familiar look to this competitive side.
We at least had a heads up with Caleb. It wasn't, right before the race. We had about a month or so to prepare, knowing that he wasn't going to be there. And I think we're going to do really well. We really need to make sure that we get through the first day. We're a lot more confident this year than we were last year.
USA will also be targeting the Junior Trophy as a realistic prospect of silverware, having been winners in the competition's last visit to South America back in 2014. The Under-23 title is often the least predictable, although Italy have a strong case for taking honours from 2017 winners France, which would leave the trophy inscribed with a 5th different nation in 5 seasons. Last year was incredible, a real classic, close right to the finish in the final test. As for this year, we're again a very strong team.
So favourites? In our minds, that's what we're heading out for. We'll be aiming to do some nice things, but we mustn't forget that the others behind us are also very fast. For sure, we all know now how it feels to finish second at the end of 6 days, and losing by just 15 seconds is really hard. So we trained a lot together to get to know one another better and to learn from last year's mistakes. And we're really focused on our objective to take the top step of the podium. The Women's World Trophy was launched here in Chile back in 2007, so returns to its birthplace. Hoping to harness the spirit of the first ever winners, the USA aim to go one better than their 2017 runner-up status and restore their flag to glory.
I think we have a pretty good chance. It'd be really great if we won here. All three of us have been here before, so I think the experience will help us tremendously. We've bonded quite a bit, we've been spending some time together in the States, working on training and getting ready for this. The terrain's a lot like what I ride in Tara. So yeah, I think we have a fantastic chance with the terrain and everything.
To make it back to the top, the USA will have to get past Australia, winners for each of the last 5 seasons. But their seemingly unbeatable trio has been broken up for the first time by the retirement of Gemma Wilson, and that places greater pressure on the team's mainstays, Jessica Gardner and Taylor Jones.
It's me and Jess still, so 2 of the 3. And Mackenzie's just joining in. Hopefully she can just follow along with us and continue our success. And it's definitely hard. We have 5 world titles, so we're living up to big expectations.
The FIM's longest running team championship opens for 2018 as ever with its traditional rider parade and presentation in the city centre. The 2018 FIM International 6 Days of Enduro is underway. .400 kilometres south of 2007 venue La Serena, but still on the country's western coast. Riders lined up in Viña del Mar for the start of the 2018 edition of the world's oldest off-road event. The course for the opening 2 days took the riders on a northern loop of the region, skirting the hills east of Valle Alegre on 2 laps of 3 specials, before returning at the end of almost 300 completed kilometres. France dominated a 2017 edition comprised predominantly of their favourite grass tracks, but Chile posed a different challenge, and it was one they never managed to adapt to. Even their most decorated performer, Christophe Nambatat, struggled to impress, and after the opening day, the reigning champions were almost 2 minutes back from the lead pace. Italy, by contrast, enjoyed a stronger week at the scene of their 2007 success. The only surviving member of that squad, Alex Salvini, spearheaded the 2018 team's opening day timesheets, along with Davide Guarneri. Italy ahead of France with 4th. Spain have never won the World Trophy, but were keen to put that unenviable record straight upon the championship's return to Chile, the scene of their first junior win back in 2007. And their 2018 team impressed on day 1 by claiming a provisional podium position, the top Iberian trio all ranking among the lead riders individually. But none of the European teams could keep pace with Australia and the USA, who proved best suited to the terrain, building a gap of over a minute to the rest by the end of the opening day. The results between them early in the week, though, were far closer. With 2 Australians and 2 Americans in the top 4 individually, they were separated by just 4 seconds overall. Australia actually claimed 3 of the first 6 test wins, compared with 2 for the USA, but it was the 2016 winners who had the individual leader and the backup to match on day 1. After a disastrous start to their 2017 efforts, contrasting fortunes a year later, the USA took the early advantage and the stage was set for a fine battle between 2 evidently strong teams.
I knew it was going to be technical, but I didn't know it was going to be this technical. I think this is going to be one of the toughest 6 days I've ever done. Not in the sense that it's going to be hard on your body, but it's just going to be hard not to make any mistakes. I mean, I won today, and I made a big mistake, had a pretty good crash. So I think everybody was making mistakes, and at the end of the week, it's just going to be able to see who can make the least amount of mistakes.
5 nations made a clear break from the rest on the opening day and would be the contenders for the remainder of the week in the World Trophy. Unfortunately for Spain, the juniors were the only trophy class to have abandoned the drop scorer rule for 2018, and as such, their team's hopes were already shredded by the end of day one. A crash for Kyrian Mirabet in the very first special, and his retirement through a rib injury made them the week's first casualties. Meanwhile, the top three teams had established themselves as the main podium contenders in the first 6 specials. The USA joining 2017's form teams France and Italy at the top of the early leaderboard. A standout performance from 2014 junior winner Grant Baylor helped the US juniors to within 30 seconds of the 2 favourites on day one. Margin between the top 2 was even closer, just as at the end of the week in France 2017, when the hosts came out on top, but by just 15 seconds. A very different team for France, with only Hugo Blanjou retained, but a familiar story at the start of the week in Chile, with little to choose between them and leaders Italy. Lining up with the top 2 from the individual Junior World Championship, Italy were always favourites to recapture the title and end a 9-year losing streak. But they justified that promise right from the start, with no obvious weak link behind their early leader, Andrea Verona. Today, for the first day of the ISDE here in Chile, it has been a really dusty day. But I'm happy with my results. I finished 16th overall. As for the team, I don't know the exact results, but I think we're first or second, really close with France. Anyway, as everybody knows, the 6 days is very long, and this is only the first day, so we just need to keep this going. An excellent day for home hero Rui Barbosa kept the provisional podium trio within reach for Chile, the inexperienced Australian junior team rounding out the early top 5. During Australia's 5-year winning run in the Women's Trophy, Spain have regularly proved the only thorn in their side. But the withdrawal of Laia Sanz due to a viral infection left them unable to challenge for the 2018 title. Instead, they held a somewhat isolated 3rd position throughout the week. The USA were the team to take the fight to favourites Australia, and having finished runners-up in 2017, they were optimistic of making the final step forward and capitalising on team changes for the reigning champions. The top 2 teams were indeed closest on the timesheets at the end of day 1, but were separated by a minute. Any fears that the retirement of Gemma Wilson would weaken the dominant Australians were assuaged as her replacement Mackenzie Tricker put in a scoring ride on her debut as teammate Jessica Gardner struggled. Key to Australia building a lead early in the week, though, was Taylor Jones, who finished the opening day over a minute faster than any of the American riders.
Definitely tough out there with all the dust and everything, but Kenz and I were on the first 2 people to go in every test, so it was really good. I'm happy to get good times to start the week off, and hopefully we can stay in that top spot.
A clear pecking order had developed in the Women's World Trophy right from the start of the week, with 11 minutes separating the top 5 across just 6 specials. Early advantages recorded on the opening day of competition proved crucial in 2018, setting the starting order and leaving the lead runners to escape the dust clouds out in front. With technical tracks having become beaten and rutted on the opening day, having clear vision for tackling them a second time would prove a significant benefit. Day 2 of the World Trophy saw only one significant change to the rankings, Spain dropping behind both Italy and France into 5th. A penalty conceded by Jaume Petriu for a late arrival to Valle Alegre after getting lost en route cost the team a valuable minute, leaving them over 2 minutes in total back from the podium positions. Italy finished only narrowly behind the USA on day 2 after a challenging first lap for Alex Salvini. The 2013 world champion was plagued early on by setup issues and then suffered a crash which continued to affect his rhythm through the day. With direct rivals France continuing to struggle, Italy ended the week's first route in a somewhat isolated 3rd position, having themselves lost ground to the leaders. Day 2 turned the battle for top spot on its head and left the USA struggling to find the balance between chasing and the inevitable errors that followed. A fall for Ryan Sipes in the final test cost the team 40 seconds that they could ill afford to lose, with the dominance of Australia's top duo helping them to find a further 50 seconds on top of that. Although Australia moved into a 1.5-minute lead, they would spend the rest of the week in psychological discomfort after the retirement of Lyndon Snodgrass with an oil starvation issue. With no further room for error, team bosses had to rely on their riders to keep up the pace, whilst also safely finishing. But there were no signs of them relenting as Daniel Milner and Daniel Sanders both moved above Taylor Roberts individually.
Didn't have dust, so that was the best thing, was on the first minute there, so that helped us out a fair bit. But then, yeah, you know, our team's riding good. You know, Chucky's riding awesome. Same with Josh Strang. They're riding unbelievable. So, and unfortunately, we've dropped a rider today, which is our joker, I guess you'd say. Lyndon had a bit of an engine malfunction, so he's out of the race, unfortunately. So we've just got the three of us left. So I mean, now it's just playing it smart and making sure we all get through it. And I mean, you can't do anything different. We'll just keep doing what we're doing, and hopefully, you know, all finish the rest of the 4 days.
An important day in the context of the overall results, with Italy gaining almost 2 minutes on France and Spain slipping behind both nations. And with Australia dominating the USA for pace as well, only a slip-up could make a major impact on the rankings, with 6 minutes now covering even the lead quintet. After the valuable experience of their first outings, Australia's juniors recorded what would eventually be their best result of the week, with third on day 2. Teenager Fraser Higlet showed the most promise of their trio and could well form the basis of a future challenge for the team. Finishing just 5th on day 2 undermined France's hopes of back-to-back junior titles. The team's most experienced representative, Hugo Blanjou, exemplified their struggles, suffering falls in 6 successive specials. He never recovered to full fitness or form. A massive 5 minutes back, albeit after just a third of the competition, France were subsequently forced to turn their focus to maintaining a podium ranking. The USA slotted into an isolated 2nd position as a result of France's catastrophe and Italy's continued superiority. Josh Toth and, in particular, Grant Baylor impressing. Day 2 saw the Italian junior team put in their best performance of the competition. Andrea Verona and Matteo Carvalho, 2 of the fastest 3 through the specials. They took their overall lead up to almost 3 minutes. 4 changes in the top 5 positions of the junior trophy on day 2, only Italy remaining consistent and building a sizable lead as a result. France faded and the USA took advantage, while behind, Australia moved temporarily above Chile to 4th. In the Women's World Trophy, gaps continue to grow between the teams as the positions settle down. The USA and Australia had been the closest pair of rivals at the end of day 1, but no team had any real answer to the reigning champions. Jessica Gardner returned to form to give Australia an even more dominant victory on day 2, but it was the incredible effort of Taylor Jones that made the biggest difference in the overall standings. The individual leader racked up an impressive 6 out of 6 to claim an unprecedented near 3-minute margin in the individual timesheets and put one hand on the women's trophy. At a 3rd race distance, there had been no sign of Australia lowering their guard or of any other team unseating the USA and Spain from the remaining podium positions. The reigning champions had boosted their lead to over 3 minutes, and the rest of the positions were separated by at least 4 minutes each. Behind the World Trophy riders at the start line, but no less well supported, are over 300 club riders that make up the majority of the competitors in the FIM International 6 Days of Enduro. Behind the scenes, working hard to deliver services to the majority of the paddock, KTM, Husqvarna, Beta and Jolly Enduro ensure that the mechanical side of competition is looked after, enabling the riders to profit from the ISDE experience.
Logistically, we wasn't able to compete at this ISD because Chile to the UK is a long distance. We would have had to send bikes out months in advance. So yeah, Team Army decided that we would hire Husqvarnas out here, which would come with this big support package that we've got. They fuel, they do the tools, you have tyre changes in the evening, they do everything for you. Food as well, and it meant that we could come as a team of 5, so 3 riders and 2 support. Normally you'd need 20 guys just to do the support and the fueling and stuff, but KTM and Husqvarna's support package really does cover everything. Everything's done. It's brilliant.
My personal experience of riding in club is based on being a Honda-supported rider with Jolly Racing Thornado. We've received huge support, very similar actually to the Chilean national team. It's been incredible. I'd never ridden in a World Championship before, so seeing such a large number of world-class riders, receiving the support of fans even away from the track, and everything around it makes it a unique experience. The presence of the sport's largest brands is also of benefit to their own business efforts, both in raising awareness of their products, but also testing them among riders of varying levels of experience and through a demanding endurance event. We're very happy to take part in this championship, to offer assistance and support to the riders with our products, and at the same time demonstrate the excellent performance that our product and official riders are enjoying. We're very proud to see how happy they are with the behaviour of our tyres and mousse. Iro have come to Chile from Italy to provide support and security to all of our riders, checking helmets at the end of each day. In such a long race, a rider needs to start every stage safely and then arrive quickly and securely. That's what we offer. For me and for our team, we're very proud of the presence of Motorex as main sponsor for the 6 days, because we can support all of the riders and teams with our products. Being in this competition at world level, which is so difficult and growing in our country, is of massive benefit for our brand, but also for the riders, in terms of their knowledge and support during the race, which is otherwise very difficult to achieve. It's our responsibility to offer the greatest benefits and support, which is why Motorex Chile is here as official partner for this massive 2018 event. Prospective riders for the 2019 6 days, due to take place in a year's time in Portugal, can look forward to the same support and enthusiasm as the many competitors have received this year. Dust was the watchword of the opening 2 days in Viña del Mar, and conditions weren't about to change as the competition reached its midweek stage. What was new, though, was the course, the second unique set of specials, seeing the riders track east for the first time towards the city of Limache before returning to familiar territory. Having sat 6th and best of the rest early in the week, hopes of an upset being sprung by the host nation in the World Trophy were over on day 3, with their captain Benjamin Herrera disqualified for a time infraction. Chile dropped to 8th position and later to 9th at the end of the competition. Italy suffered their first real mishap of the week, with Alex Salvini suffering fuel problems in the final special that put an end to any fading hopes of a top 2 position. With 8 drop minutes, Salvini's starting position as well as individual ranking were compromised, leaving him hard at work, passing in the dust for the rest of the week. Italy, though, were able to mitigate any damage to the team result, conceding less than 30 seconds to France. Despite gaining further on each of the teams behind them, the USA failed to make any ground on Australia with a lack of backup for Taylor Roberts. Following his day 2 crash, Ryan Sipes struggled to recapture his best form. And that played into the hands of Australia, with their top 2 still running strong and well supported by third man Josh Strang. With another near 2-minute buffer added to their advantage, Australia were beginning to forget about a close opening day as they marched towards victory. Spain missed an opportunity to gain on Italy and France in the battle for the podium places after a fall for Cristobal Guerrero in the day's first special. Positions 3 to 5 overall remain separated by 2.5 minutes as a result. Despite day 3 defeat at the hands of France,
Italy remained 90 seconds clear of the reigning champions. Finland became the fourth team to lose a rider and therefore the latest casualty of the brutal junior team format as they dropped out of contention from 6th. The Finns' top performer, Ronnie Kaitanen, retired after a heavy crash early in the day. Meanwhile, Chile, who'd started day 3 just one position clear of Finland, provided the entertainment for the rest of the week. Taking 3rd on the day, the host nation leapfrogged Australia overall and moved back into contention for the podium positions. The top 3 teams finished day 3 in order of their provisional ranking. Italy once again on top for a 3rd consecutive win. This time out, even their 3rd fastest rider, Matteo Carvalho, was among the top 5 placed juniors in the timesheets, as his team gained a further 40 seconds on nearest rivals, the USA. I'm really happy with the team. We are first with a 3-minute advantage over the USA. Now we're in the middle of the 6 days, so it's important to keep this gap. I'm really happy, because for myself, I really didn't expect such good results. I finished 5th yesterday and 6th today, which is good. Now I'll aim to keep this rhythm to the end of the last cross test.
Bisogna cercare di mantenere insomma questo gap e stare diciamo più lucidi possibili.
Another day of deficits for France and the chasing pack left Italy and the USA seemingly the only realistic title contenders. France, meanwhile, were beginning to struggle with the cumulative effects of a series of crashes, and Chile, much to the delight of the local crowds, were poised to take advantage. Spain enjoyed their best women's trophy finish on day 3 with 2nd ahead of the USA, but in far from straightforward fashion. Sandra Gomez conceded a 1-minute penalty and further time helping a stricken teammate, while Gabriela Seis-Dedos retired from the day's competition after a heavy crash. In the first rally after the first special, I had to go really fast. I did arrive 3 or 4 minutes late, fueled up and carried on. But as for the special, I can only remember passing 2 other girls, but after that I must have hit something. I don't really know where I fell, I didn't really know where I was, but I managed to get out. Now I'm feeling a bit better. My head hurts, but I feel okay and the bike is ready for tomorrow. I hope to be at the start line, ready to help my team keep 3rd place. Day 3 saw the USA's early challenge fade as they failed to provide sufficient backup to Brandy Richards on day 3. But Australia doubled their advantage to over 6 minutes. Reigning champions were 3 minutes faster on day 3 alone and showed their strength in depth on a tougher day for Taylor Jones, which saw her win her 3rd consecutive set of specials, but only by 3 seconds. On this occasion, it was her teammate Jessica Gardner that was responsible for the majority of the team's gains. Spain's 2nd position on day 3 was undeniably an impressive result, but saw them take back just 13 seconds of a mammoth gap that stood at almost 6 minutes. Realistically, they were now consigned to 3rd, with France in turn well back and the podium position seemingly settled. To combat the effects of dusty conditions, just 1 run through the La Laja special was completed on each of days 3 and 4, reducing the overall number of tests by 2. A further change for the 4th day of competition saw gaps between riders extended. Nonetheless, on clearly challenging terrain and with fatigue beginning to play its part, things were not getting any easier for the competitors. Spain's challenge for the podium positions in the World Trophy was ended on day 4 with their fastest rider of the week, Jaume Petriu, suffering a heavy crash in the La Gloria special and withdrawn through injury. Thankfully, the injury is not very serious. He has a cracked heel bone, but I'm sure within a couple of months he will be back competing.
France also dropped out of podium contention as they failed to match their Day 3 efforts on the same course, and Italy consolidated third. The reigning champions were left needing a minor miracle to recover a near 3-minute margin, with the 12-minute gap to the leaders by now already unthinkable. Beaten 3 days in succession by Australia, the USA were also left relying on misfortune befalling their rivals, after dropping almost 6 minutes behind in total by the end of Day 4. The Americans' only hope would be another retirement for Australia, who had already used their joker back on Day 2, but there were no signs of any problems for the remaining trio, who continued to push clear. In fact, it was Daniel Milner's individual effort that really enabled Australia to move within touching distance of a second World Trophy. He took each of the specials on Day 4, and his individual effort was well supported through the rest of the team. With sizable gaps between each of the top 4, the podium positions had been resolved, barring unforeseen issues and retirements late in the week. The remaining duel for 4th between France and Spain offered little attraction, particularly after the elimination of Jaume Petriu. Chile were once again the team in focus in the Junior Trophy as they continued to hunt down France for a place on the podium. Beating the reigning champions for a second consecutive day, the hosts continued to rely on Rui Barbosa to do most of the heavy lifting, and his contribution alone was worth a minute on the struggling French riders. Aside from that fight for third, there were few talking points on a quiet Day 4. The USA were comfortably faster than the teams behind them, but still couldn't match Italy, who gained another minute to move their overall advantage beyond the 4-minute mark. Only a disappointing opening day was keeping Chile from a provisional podium place in the Junior Trophy. But after 3 laborious recovery days, they had the French within sight, less than a minute up the road. Not one of the trophy classes saw any changes to the top 5 overall rankings on Day 4. In the women's trophy, each of the 9 competing teams simply drifted further from one another. The USA did their best to challenge by picking up the pace following their Day 3 slump. Brandy Richards impressed for a second time on the Eastern Loop, and Australia was still faster by almost 2 minutes. The reigning champions' only concerns were over the fitness of Mackenzie Tricker following a Day 4 crash scare that required medical attention. But with the drop time regulations, Australia was safe in the knowledge that their top 2 could continue to dominate, Jessica Gardner having put in her best ride of the week.
Like our senior trophy team, they were also in front and they lost their joker the other day, so you know, we're all just trying to be smart now and get each other through. For example, today in the trail, all the girls were stuck, and Taylor as well, so I got up the hill and I made sure she got through as well. And you know, we want to keep the team moving along together, and this is definitely not an individual event, so fingers crossed, we'll keep moving forward.
Australia were by now almost assured of their 6th consecutive Women's World Trophy. The USA similarly comfortable in 2nd, and Spain benefiting from the return of Gabriela Seiz-Dedos to make 3rd position somewhat safer as well. The FIM International 6 Days of Enduro is the original team motorsport. For over 100 years, it's been the ultimate off-road test of man and machine. With more than 1,000 kilometres of riding, the top competitors are well aware of the need to take care of themselves, both mentally and physically, for the event's full duration.
It is the ultimate enduro race. It's 6 days. There's no longer enduro race for off-road bikes, so it's tough. You have to complete 300 k's a day, and we can spend an hour to an hour and a half without food or drink at the fuel control. So, and then we've got to go fast when we need to in the test. So it's pretty difficult, and you have to be fit coming into the event. So it doesn't take 1 week to be ready for this. It takes months for the team to arrive fit, strong, and fast, and the bike's reliable and work together. So yeah, it's not just one rider. It's many.
Even if a rider is on top form and at peak fitness, there's an ever-present risk of a retirement through mechanical failure. And although the competitors do have a team of mechanics behind them, regulations enforce the spirit of the event through a requirement for the riders to service their own machines. From a mechanical point of view, the ISDE is much more demanding even than a World Championship or European Championship race, simply because it's over 6 days. It's a completely different event, principally because the riders are obliged to do everything mechanical themselves. We prepare the bikes in advance of the competition to make sure they're 100%, and we supervise everything but without touching the bike. We're allowed to do anything to do with liquids, but the riders look after everything else. We can give them the materials and the relevant tools to help them take the bike apart. In terms of liquids, and for the sake of security, we're allowed to intervene, for example, changing brake fluid. As for the engine, we're allowed to check and fill cooling fluids and change the engine oil. The rider has to do pretty much everything else, changing their tyres, repairing damage from crashes, changing their levers or handlebars, anything mechanical. For Chile, the key thing is the dust. If there is even the slightest problem in that regard, you can have an engine failure. It's critical that in each control we change an air filter. It's the lifeblood of the bike. We also check the transmission. We make sure everything is flowing correctly, make any required setup adjustments, do a radio check, and ensure nothing is faulty on the bike. To conclude, the best thing about the 6 days is the rider having to protect both himself and the bike. With only the traditional motocross test awaiting the riders on day 6, the penultimate day of competition is customarily the last chance for teams to make large margins in the overall standings. Since the new course presented to the riders on day 5 was the longest of the competition, it would prove an especially decisive stage of the event. Italy shored up their third-place ranking in the World Trophy by taking 4 of the top 8 places in Day 5's individual results, just 7 seconds separating their team riding quartet. 2008 junior champion Thomas Oldrati was their top performer on this occasion, further underlining the team's strength in depth. The USA once again claimed 2nd position to consolidate their runner-up ranking, but could do little more with even their star rider dropping back. Taylor Roberts moved closer to sealing the E2 class, but faded further from the individual lead, while his teammate Stuart Baylor continued the opposite trend, improving in the second half of the week. Simply to avoid any further retirements will have been the advice given to Australia's riders at the start of the penultimate day, with little chance of them being overhauled on pure pace, and a case of business as usual on day 5 put them within touching distance of the crown. With not one retirement in the class on day 5, no real changes were in prospect in the latter stages of the week, and Australia were well on their way to a first World Trophy since 2015. Having closed impressively on France for 3rd in the Junior Trophy, Chile lost their chance to overhaul the reigning champions with a disastrous final special on day 5 for Esteban Lanz. Having provided the best support to Rui Barbosa all week, he dropped over a minute in one hit, the time that could have put Chile into a coveted podium position. Thanks to their advantage from the start of the week and consistency on an important day, therefore, France secured 3rd position, restoring their 1.5-minute margin over their direct rivals. It was a case of too little too late for the USA, who took the spoils on day 5, but could only manage to make back less than a minute on leaders Italy. Battling through problems with his right shoulder that dislocated 3 times during the week, Grant Baylor put in a determined performance to lead the team as they secured 2nd position overall. Italy suffered their first defeat of the week, but despite losing almost 50 seconds to the USA, kept the bulk of their comfortable lead intact.
The leaders successfully negotiated the first real hurdles of their week. A 10-second penalty and problems in the final special for Andrea Verona, making no real impact on their title challenge. Disappointment for Chile settled the podium positions in the junior trophy, as reigning champions France secured some consolation with third on the day and denied the hosts a moment of glory. Meanwhile, despite failing to impress on day 5, Italy entered the final day with a comfortable 3-minute lead. A day 5 disaster for France created the only remaining change to the overall rankings in the Women's World Trophy. The rest of the leaders all making it to the flag without further incident. An hour's penalty for Audrey Rosset could not be mitigated under the dropped result regulation, since Valérie Roche had already retired before the first special of the second lap with a burst radiator. The only other surprise for the day was a new individual winner. Having come close on days 3 and 4, Brandy Richards got the better of Taylor Jones by over 30 seconds. The USA, as a result, enjoying their best day of the week. Unable to make back any ground on Australia, though, they remained consigned to second. For the leaders, almost 9 minutes clear at the end of the last full day, Jessica Gardner continued her resurgence and helped keep up her team's run of consecutive day wins. Taylor Jones had a tougher time with a crash on the first lap, but retained an individual advantage of almost 3 minutes. With an 8th position finish on day 5, France dropped down to 6th overall with little scope for recovery. Sweden and Portugal instead rounded out a new-look top 5 that even the most audacious supporter would consider beyond any late changes. The 29th and last special of the week on its own offered no chance of changing the pecking order other than in the case of retirements. With only a 22-kilometre ride out to the Cartodromo Ritoque, there was little chance of that either. But the final motocross test is a prestigious way to end the week in front of a sizable crowd. In the women's trophy race, Taylor Jones aimed to add to her impressive total of 14 special wins to cap off her individual victory of Australia's team success. But she was never able to break clear at the front. First, Brandy Richards of the USA moved through down the inside to lead. But she was then overhauled after a spectacular crash which dropped her to third. 2-times world motocross champion Livia Lancelot took up the running at the front, converting her expertise into a 4th special win of the week and by a commanding margin. Comfortably fastest on her team during the 2018 ISDE, the 30-year-old only lacked backup further down the order as France missed out on the podium places. Despite seeing 2 riders home inside the top 5, the USA failed by just 8 seconds in their bid to end Australia's unbroken sequence of wins, and their winning margin extends beyond 9 minutes. Behind them, Spain come home for an isolated 3rd.
Yeah, most certainly. You know, every time you win a world title, there's always going to be the people trying to catch you again in the year after, so it's pretty special to go 6 in a row, and that's always hard to do, but we couldn't do it without the whole of Team Australia. You know, us 3 girls get along great and we do our time on the track, and we're great off the track together too, but there's a whole crew behind us as well that make this happen. So big shout out to all the Team Australia that's here. They've been running around the whole motocross track cheering for us, so yeah, without everyone it wouldn't be possible.
A 6th consecutive title for Australia, even a change to their lineup not enough to break their unbeaten run. Where the women's trophy began back in 2007 in Chile, the all-time winning record is broken in 2018. Italy's Andrea Verona and Davide Guarneri were favourites in E1, the first of 3 men's trophy races, but neither featured in the early fight for the lead. Instead, 2 nations who'd made no headlines all week provided the early front-running competitors. Germany's Davide von Zitzewitz taking the whole shot, pursued by Luis Oliveira. The Portuguese rider became the race's 2nd leader by the end of the opening lap, but later faded to 5th.
Italy's pre-race favourites, though, were in the thick of the action throughout. Andrea Verona began to slip back, losing third position to Ryan Sykes by the end of lap 2. Davide Guarneri was moving in the opposite direction, bundling past his fellow countryman for fourth with an aggressive block pass. Next, Guarneri caught and passed early leader von Zitzewitz, the German gradually dropping back to sixth while the Italian set after the leader. It was mission accomplished on lap 4 when he cut through on the inside of Ryan Sykes to claim a lead he gradually extended to the checkered flag. To win E1 overall, though, Guarneri would have needed to make back a 45-second margin, which was never attainable, with Andrea Verona claiming third. Meanwhile, at the back, a fall and subsequent mechanical problems for Fraser Higlett threatened to provide a twist in the overall results. But with some assistance, he hauled the bike over the line to keep the Australian junior team in the competition. Third place was enough for Andrea Verona to seal overall victory in E1 and move his team one step closer to confirming their junior trophy win. The USA secured their runner-up position in the World Trophy as they brought home their second and third finishes in E2. But it was Loic Larrieux who was the star of the show. 2017's individual winner bolted from the gates to a comfortable victory, leaving the race behind him over seconds. Cristobal Guerrero looked fairly comfortable there for a time, Josh Strang initially holding third but dropping back. The Australian was passed by Alex Salvini for third on lap 2. And he had dropped behind Stuart Baylor as well before the American fell a lap later. From there, it was a straightforward sprint to the flag, but only Alex Salvini had the pace to live with Loic Larrieux, and he had to get past Cristobal Guerrero before he could go off in pursuit. Larrieux's leading margin was cut to 4 seconds, but he held on nonetheless in relative comfort. Only limited consolation for France on the day the reigning champions handed over the trophy. USA representatives Taylor Roberts and Stuart Baylor eventually rounded out the top 10. 2 Italians in the top 4 again proving what a solid week it had been for them. There were some nail-biting moments in E3 with the final riders coming home for leaders Italy and Australia. The first turn only served to underline the justification for that nervousness, with Davide Serreca coming down. Thankfully, he was able to remount swiftly, and although he was left unable to end the week on a high note, just finishing was critical to the Italian junior team. Meanwhile, at the front of the field, Zachary Bell took his moment to shine and dominated the last test of the week. US representative first cut by individual leader Daniel Milner for second place on track. And he then soared around the outside of Giacomo Redondi in fine style to take up a lead he never surrendered. The celebrations, though, were reserved for the 2 countries whose representatives occupied the 4 positions behind him. Squad celebrations for Italy as they sealed the junior title and a memorable second title for Australia. Significant margins in the end between the top 6, who provided an entertaining fight for positions in the last race of the 2018 FIM ISDE. No changes to the Junior World Trophy rankings in the final special. Chile unable to overhaul France, who take third behind the USA and winners Italy. Here we are at the end of day 6 and we've got the win, so we're really happy. We had a good race today, so we kept the gap and got the win, which is really important because last year we lost by 15 seconds. We've done it now, so we're really happy. Winners of the first ever junior trophy, Italy return to the top for their 8th title. And although this team will now have to be broken up for next season, their riders will be closely followed as they attempt to challenge for a place in the World Trophy itself. Italy win the final day ahead of the USA, but the World Trophy finishes unchanged with Australia on top ahead of both.
You know, 15, we never got to stand on the podium at the day, so I think it's going to mean so much today is to get up on that top step and, you know, be proud Aussies, because we've all, I guess, put a lot of effort into this race, and with the supporters and everyone that has, you know, backed us guys, it's been awesome, and we couldn't have done it without them, and, you know, the performance of all us guys, it's been awesome.
Having taken their first title in the 2015 edition of the 6 Days in Slovakia, Australia secure their second World Trophy win in 2018. Will this time aim to defend the title for the first time when they line up in Portugal next season.